Hello, everyone. I'm Candid Stanisci of Open Forum. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Open Forum, joining me is Sheref Sabawy, Progressive Conservative Party of Canada and member of the legislature. Thank you for being here, Sheref.
That's just like a small correction. This is Progressive Conservative Ontario, not Canada.
Oh, Ontario. So I am so sorry. Yes. Yeah. Okay. You're right. No. That was a typo by my. I just decided to type that, and I didn't think very clearly, I guess. So I apologize for giving you a. Well, I don't know. Is it a good thing? Well, I guess you're not in power. The Conservatives aren't in power in the federal government, but you are in the Ontario government. So I guess yes. I was sort of lowering your value. I apologize for that.
Like, I don't think there is a bigger value or lower value as much as helping the people in different aspects and different portfolios, because this federal portfolios are different than provincial portfolios. So it's not important for me that you introduce me as a federal or provincial conservatives, but I was just making sure the correction is happening so that I don't get the questions related to some issues which I'm not part of. That's all.
Well, you'll correct me then as well.
Thank you.
We can look forward to that too. All right. So you're in Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Yes.
Other people might know Erin Mills as Highway 10. If they, the street I'm talking about. Your location is in Mississauga, pretty much above downtown, I guess.
Yes, we are actually starting from Erin Mills all the way to Oakville. So it's a west end of Mississauga, not the middle. Like Ontario divide Mississauga vertically to two halves. I'm in the west end, adjacent to Oakville.
I meant north of downtown Mississauga.
Yeah,
that's what I meant to say.
Mississauga grown. Mississauga became the sixth biggest city in Canada.
I was there for 30 years. So I have an idea of where it is. I was in Park Royal, if that gives you an indication of where I was. So a great community next to Clarkson, one of the more affluent places.
Yes.
I had an experience. I can understand a lot of things that are going on in Mississauga, obviously because I live there, and I also understand what's going on in Ontario and also federally, of course. You're a member of the Standing Committee on the General Government. What does that mean? Explain to people what your responsibility are in that regard.
Okay, so there is standing committees, a few of them who are divided in specialization on the matters which can come across to be presented in front of them. And when a bill passed first reading, second reading, debated, and passed the vote, it gets referred to one of the standing committees to continue the procedure of the bill, which is public hearings. So basically, after this bill become in front of the committee, they put together like a time frame where people can send their submissions, and people could be persons who will get impacted with that, or organization or stakeholders who are part of the process or will be directly impacted positively or negatively of the bill, the proposed bill. So they get offered slots to talk what they have in mind. Then there is a chance for the government to ask questions, a specific number of minutes, and then a specific numbers of minutes for the official oppositions and the independent, and all that on records, on the Hansard, and sometimes also on video, audio recording, so that people know what's the background discussions around what's the positives and negatives of that.
And there are previous announcements that indicate that this bill is in process, and if you'd like to have an opinion expressed, you have an opportunity. Call us at this number, and then an opportunity for them to speak or to be heard
No, it's not that. Like you can do that on the fly. There is a official submission, meaning you have to write an email with whatever you want to say or whatever the point they are asking for, and all those submissions get sent to the legislative committee, and some of them get chosen uh, and do in person or Zoom. Currently, because of the COVID, in person or Zoom, they do their testimony. They have a specific number of minutes to talk in person about the issue, or they can choose to just send a submission and that's it. So somebody will go through all the submissions, read them, and understanding what is the issue and how that impacts them. And if it's very strong point, we most probably will ask them to come and present that to us so that we can discuss with them. I mean, there's opportunity that they say what they want to say and us to get some clarification. What do you mean by that will impact you, or what do you mean by this is will mean demolishing of some specific thing, like whatever is depending on the bill.
Okay, I think we went deep enough in the weeds with that one. We understand the process a little better. You're
Yeah,
also
I have to say an extra piece after that. Those presentations I sometimes continue for 3 days, from 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the evening, sometimes to 12 a.m., to offer as much as possible of hearings. Then we close the submission. After the deadline of the submission, we go back and do amendments. If we, either the government or the opposition, think about, based on that hearings, we'll do some amendments, like yes, we can fix this, we can add this, we can remove this. And after that, those get debated within the committee, and then after the final bill is approved, like basically plus some amendments or the remove it parts, we go line by line. So it have any bill get approved for third reading, gone line by line. Anybody have a problem with paragraph A in section 2? Anybody have a problem with paragraph B in section 2? So every piece of the bill get voted and amended if needed, and then if it's ready, it goes as a third reading, debated again in the parliament before it get offered the royal assent and voted on the third reading, and then royal assent. So it's a very long process.
So in other words, you're the worker bee. This is what
Yes.
they do. This is what they do to the new politicians. Because I've got my tongue in my cheek right now. You have spent most of your position as representing Erin Mills under COVID. So you don't know as much what it's like not to be in COVID. You were brought in 2018, and I think it's fair to say that you didn't come into politics thinking of dealing with COVID. You are adjusting to what your responsibilities are, and then this thing called COVID comes around. Tell me what was in your mind when that happened. That had to be strange, to say the least.
Well, I mean, we spent a year and a half before COVID hits. Like we came in June 2018, the COVID hit us in February, March 2020. So we spent about a year and a half before COVID, which again for us as not newbie, like new in politics, it's learning all the processes and the all different procedures and protocols about things. And all of a sudden COVID hit and everything changed again, and we have to learn a new processes and a new procedures and protocols. And you know what, it's drinking from the fire hose.
Yeah, the point is, I guess you weren't really at a disadvantage with other politicians. So everybody had to learn this whole new process among all the other processes that they have to learn. So it's been a very interesting time. On the subject of your constituency, you are ready, willing, and able to listen to what your constituents have to say. And I want to remind people they can call that number at 905-820-8851. So if they have any questions for the member of legislature. Now, you were also the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture Industries. And I think that sounds like an interesting situation right now, because it's very COVID related, because all those things because of COVID are not running the way they were in 2018 when you were elected.
Absolutely. I have to say a general umbrella comment. I don't think anybody would love to be in government when there's a big crisis as big as
Well,
COVID.
you just
It's
ruined
very
all.
similar.
You just
I
ruined a whole section of my interview.
like, let me tell you something. When we first start talking about and what we're gonna do about COVID, are we gonna lock down, not lock down, all kind of discussions around that. And Premier Dog listened to every single one of us. It was one a kind of discussion or one of kind of caucus call. And I still remember what I said at this day, and I think it's going to be engraved in my head the rest of my life. When I said, like, we don't exactly know what is the magnitude of this new COVID thing, how bad, how good, how much we will be able to fight, and what the casualties rates and everything else. Like, we don't know. It's something nobody knows. Even the whole world doesn't know yet what it is. But I prefer to be cautious and take all the precaution I can to save lives and make sure that people don't die, because no matter what is the cost, money wise, we can try to recoup that later on. We can recover that through economic or programs from the government or programs from banks or whatever it is. We will find a way to get people going. But if we lost lives, I don't feel like my conscience wouldn't feel comfortable. And I know that many generations to come will remember that COVID government, because that is the first time in the history we know, I mean, we lived where the whole world got locked down. I think it never happened before. So it's very similar to the people who talk about the government during the Second World War, what they did. I think many generations will remember what we did through COVID to protect people. I can agree or disagree. People can agree or disagree. You can agree or disagree. But end of the day, the history will write what we did and will be either in our side or against us, but it's going to be remembered. So when we take any decision, when we think about anything, when we discuss anything, I tell them discuss it knowing that not only Canadians or Ontarians looking to you, the history is going to be looking and judging you.
But here, that creates a bit of a problem from my perspective as a viewer. You know, you're inside the bubble. I'm on the outside looking. And sometimes I think, there's a term called vapor lock, which basically means that people freeze because the pressure is too much, or they make decisions that aren't really long-term good decisions, but they make sense short-term. Your government and the Liberal government, this is not something, because you're 100% right. I was laughing because I wanted to bring that point out. You went and brought it out before I could be kind enough to bring it out for you. So my point is that it's very easy to criticize a government, because whether you're a liberal, a conservative, I guess this sets aside NDP and Green Party because they're not in power. But when someone's in power, they have to make real decisions and have real situations created by their decisions, right? There's consequences for every decision you make. And if I'm understanding you correctly, because this is the point I was going to talk to you about, we'll do it now. It's a little ahead of when I wanted to, but the point is, you have to make decisions that you feel, and you framed it beautifully, that history will judge you, not the electorate, not your party, not the opposition, but history is going to judge you. Does that make it a better decision that you're arriving at, or is that just a decision that's a decision of convenience? Is there any fear of that being a decision of convenience on the part of the Progressive Party of Ontario and, of course, the Premier?
No, I don't see it this way, because end of the day, uh, people wouldn't say he did this because he's conservative or he did this because he's liberal. They will say he did this, period, or they did this, period. So when we are in crisis, I think the tone of partisan, or that's they are taking this decision because they are conservatives. If they were liberals, they will take it differently or whatever. That's very marginal discussion, because at the time of crisis, we are all in the same side. Like, there's no sides in here. I don't think that any government in our position, even if it's NDP or Green or Liberal or any direction or attribute of political attribute would do much different than that. And we can dispute that as much as you want, and NDP can dispute that as much as you want, liberals can dispute that as much as you want. But end of the day, the motive would be one. We need to make sure that we saving lives of Ontarians. And I think the worst part, which people should, or some of the fears in the beginning of the crisis was, oh, the conservative wouldn't care about people, they would care about the government, the companies and money, and we're going to lose. And I think we proved in every single situation we were in any fork where we have to take decision right or left to go, we put the health and the safety of people as number one. And Premier actually said it multiple times in a very good term, saying we are not going to keep anything whatsoever to make sure that we are protecting the safety and lives of Ontarians.
I don't think anyone can disagree with that fact. While the pandemic is raging, our politicians have been pretty good to work with each other. It's very easy to throw some cheap shots towards the government under these circumstances. So I agree with you. All parties have acted responsibly for the most part. There's always exceptions that make the rule, right? So
Of
nothing
course,
is ever perfect, right?
yes, 100%. I agree that uh, as a government, we look into the broader picture, not in one aspect. Like I know a lot of people saying medical people or medical experts look into the medical part of it. They don't look into the business part of it. And there's another part would say, oh, the people are looking into the business part of it. If they are business, they are not looking into the consequences, health wise or infection wise. But as a government, we have to look into the whole holistic picture, like how that will impact the health, how that will impact the business, how we gonna make the funding for that. How are we? Do we have enough money? And of course, do we have enough authorities and legal authorities to take such a decision or not? So there's many aspects of it because we don't want to take any decisions which seem to be trying to protect people, but end of the day, maybe it's beyond our jurisdiction. For example, I can give you an example of that: borders. We have been pleading to the federal government since March of last year, please close the borders because we need to control the infection coming from outside. And they didn't. On 7th of January, just they finally added the BCR requirement, which is kind of too late kind of thing in January 7th. And then they locked down, or they locked partially down in almost March, which is a year later. Now we are facing a big variant coming from different areas in the world, and we are not sure yet even if the vaccine works 100% for those new variants or not. And we continue asking them. It's beyond our abilities to control that. Like people keep saying, close Pearson Airport. Well, the airport and the border is not under the provincial government. I can't take a decision of closing the airport, international airport. That's a federal government. They can put restrictions. Have to live with that. We have to continue asking, but we don't have any jurisdiction on that to take such a decision.
To be fair, though, I understand that, like when you start talking about January is when a lot of people look. We had a president in the United States that withheld that information, and that information caused a lot of deaths. They don't speak to that in America because they don't want to hear that. But the fact is, there were a lot of people who had information about this. You can go all the way back to China. So that's why I give both levels of government in Canada. If it's true that neither the premier or the prime minister knew of the transmissibility of this virus, if they did not know that it was like that, then how do you act in a manner that you can politically say, we're going to shut our doors, we're not going to let anybody in here? And that is, to me, you talked about history. And history, eventually, people are going to ask themselves, should have the people in power who had the information going all the way back to China, should they have been honest and truthful? And that's the reason, if they had been, we wouldn't be where we are today. We would have been a few months ahead because we wouldn't have let it get so bad, and we would have been further along in rectifying the problem. Now, I don't know about vaccines and all that stuff, but I can say that information, good information that you as a politician have, if you don't have it, you can't make a good decision. I hope you agree with that.
I agree. Your decision is as good as your input. Like, I'm IT professor. I've been spending 35 years of my life as an IT specialist, and there's a very good say about systems: garbage in, garbage out. If
Absolutely.
you don't have good data input, you end up with decisions which had no doesn't make any sense because the input was
Absolutely.
totally wrong. But I would say there's at least 2 points where I always look into those 2 points and say we would be in a very, very, very different place if we those took different directions in those 2 points, which is one of them closing borders or more strong control over borders. And the second point is vaccine. Like, we keep
Yes.
getting hammered on vaccine. We didn't have the vaccine. Like, I wouldn't need to prioritize who take vaccine and who don't if we have enough vaccine. I don't have to tell people you will get your second dose after 4 months if I have enough doses. And when somebody talk about efficiency, telling me, oh, the provincial government wasn't really efficient in distribution, I would say mathematically, 100% efficient or 99% efficiency of zero is zero. It's not 90%, it's zero. So unless I have vaccine in hand, you can't talk to me about efficiency. We managed to dismantle 1 million doses in 6 days. 6 days, 1 million doses. If I have 10 million doses in 60 days, I would manage to vaccinate whole Ontario.
Well,
Six
I'm
weeks. Six, sorry, 6 days by 10 million, 60 days. Like, in 2 months, I could vaccinate majority of adults, like 90% of adults in Ontario. But we didn't have that vaccine.
Well, MLA Sabawy, I agree with what you're saying. I understand about your defensive posture, and the fact is, you've been tested. That posture has been tested and prodded, obviously, because I haven't had a chance to do it. So I'll come in halfway in the discussion, and I will say this: the fact remains that the Conservative Party, maybe we should start with. I'll just continue this thought. The Conservative Party has had the reputation of taking our healthcare system and weakening it. This is not your responsibility. This isn't even the Premier's responsibility. This is a historic responsibility of the Progressive Party that has weakened our healthcare system, and the Liberal Party has been a party to it. And this is what we're seeing today, is us offshoring the responsibility of our health care, which the vaccine is. We decided that we didn't need to know how to make vaccines or have the system in place or create a system or prop up a system. We turned our back on making vaccines. That's a decision that isn't your responsibility. That isn't the responsibility of your party. It's the responsibility of every government going back a few decades where they didn't see this coming. But does this mean now that we've learned our lesson and that there's some independent healthcare issues that we need to achieve? Is your party on that board? Are they heading in that direction? Is it a plank in your, if you run for the next election, will it be a plank that you promise to give Canada the kind of healthcare system that we thought we had, which we don't have? We don't have an independent healthcare system. We rely on masks from the United States. We rely on vaccines from other countries. Is there a reason to change that methodology is what I'm asking you right now. I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming anybody in particular. But is that methodology a good one?
Okay, first of all, I would like to refer to us as government instead of Conservative Party because,
Okay.
as I mentioned, like, we are now government for everybody, not for Conservative Party or Liberal Party. We are government for the whole Ontario. So, yes, as a government, we realized day one the need to have vaccine. We realized day one that we need to have enough sanitizers, enough PPEs like masks and stuff. And Premier Dog went very, very hard on in this. And I don't know if you know or not, but Mississauga hosts the biggest 10 pharmaceutical company worldwide, companies in Mississauga, 10 of them. And we had meetings and calls with them as soon as before the vaccine, of course, and after the vaccine, because we were discussing with them that Mississauga could be the Silicon Valley for medicine, the Silicon Valley to offer all the
Absolutely.
medications to Canada, not only to Ontario, because of the first of all, we have lots of expertise coming from different places in the world, living in GTA and Mississauga specifically. Number two, we have the 10, as I mentioned, 10 of the biggest pharmaceutical companies. So we had that even prior to COVID hits us. When COVID hits us, we met with them, and at least two of the 10 were willing to open or expand their facilities to manufacture vaccine, but they needed investments. They needed some federal money, some provincial money, if we can offer them some, like, some requirements need to be fulfilled for them to be able to produce vaccine in here. And at the time, the message from the federal government was Canada doesn't have the expertise or the in-house knowledge to create vaccines in Canada. And I think that was in May last year, 2020. We ended up, as the government, we signed some agreement with Sanofi. It's a French company to produce some vaccinations in Ontario. We encouraged other manufacturers to expand their facilities in Ontario. And finally, last week, I heard that the federal government granted some company in here in Ontario some federal money to develop some research around the RNA, which is the technology behind the
Yes.
Pfizer vaccine and Moderna. That's one aspect of it. Sanitizers. We gone for many factories who did transfer their lines to do sanitizer. I know a company in Mississauga, which I went to their facilities. They were introducing vodka and
That's
some
right.
Haraki and
Alcohol.
some stuff, and they changed it to 97% alcohol, which can with some additive be as sanitizers, and they were introducing sanitizers all the way after 1 month of the, like in April they start their shipping sanitizers made in Canada. Masks, we immediately start working in lines to produce masks, and now I can say that Ontario is offering enough masks production, not to cover for only Ontario but many other areas in Canada as well. So yes, Doug Ford started something made in Ontario, and we encouraging companies to produce, manufacture, and produce made in Ontario products. And they have a trademark now for made in Ontario, and we are working on that. And I hope that we never run again out of anything we need. All our essential products have to be ready made in Ontario.
Yeah, that would require creating a list, a laundry list of essential items, I guess. I guess that'd be one place to start and ensure that all those essential items have some sort of immediate, shall I say, access from Ontario, right? That
I,
ultimately is what's necessary.
I can assure you that we created a portal called Ontario Spirit, and companies through that portal can log in and put their ideas, what they can do, what they want to do, what they want from us. And there's a special team directly reporting to Premier Office and many of the other ministries who go through that day by day. And the portal is good in a way that when they do a submission, they get a submission number. And they can go to their MPPs and tell them the submission number, and we can follow up about the idea and if it's approved or what's missing there. Maybe some requirements are not there. And all companies went to that portal, from companies who are introducing rapid testing to companies who can produce masks to companies who can import masks in a cheaper price. Some ideas about ventilators can be made in Ontario, and we have enough ventilators now produced in Ontario, which is, I'm very happy, very proud of that. And you can see how proud we are when the COVID hit India, and we donated 5,000 made in Ontario ventilators to India to help them fighting the COVID there. Those are made in Ontario products.
For a short time, I worked at BioVale, so I have an idea of what you're talking about. And that street alone, there at what is it called? Glaxo.
Glaxo.
Like Klein. Oh, geez, I'm sorry. But anyway, I used to look at their building all the time. There were a few
The white building.
yeah, there are a few pharmaceutical buildings right there that you could drop an umbrella on in Mississauga. Mississauga has a deep history of dealing with that stuff. So you're in a good place to be aware of what can be done and act on what can be done. And just in case the folks missed it, I want to highlight this very important point. Like or dislike the past U.S. administration led by Donald Trump, he spent $29 million. He gave the pharmacy world a couple of different companies that money to do their research. And as you said, RNA is a new thing. It's brand new, and it's something that got looked into. And you're aware, and I thank you for pointing that out, that there's a decision that was made. We have to decide, when we look back, as you said, history will determine whether our federal government should have made that kind of investment and make a determination, I guess, because it's all about, it's ironic, but I think it's the true manner. And as a person in the Progressive Conservative Party, you understand that there's a return. We always want a return for an investment. And the return for the investment is that the vaccine came out in such a hurry. There are other decisions that you can make like that. You've highlighted quite a few with the manufacture of PPE. That's really, really important. Do you also think that it also means training? Has it changed from where you sit and where the government sits, that there should be a change on education and how to direct people in maybe emergency services of different kinds? What lessons do you think you've learned and corrections that can be made in the hospital system?
I can say that definitely, like many, I think we are going to spend few years trying to estimate or evaluate the expertise or experiences we got from the COVID. It's going to be studied for many years to come, but I can point to two immediate points, for example, come to my head. First of all, the shortage we start having in nurses, and we are starting a program where the government will fund the training of nurses to accelerate the intake of the nurses. I think the number was 1,800 spots for nurses will be funded by the government to make sure to accelerate the production of nurses and registered nurses. The second item is talking about the changes we are doing in the longer-term care. Longer-term care have been left behind for many years. The longer-term care issue is not COVID. It will beyond much earlier than COVID. For 15 years on the Liberal governments, nobody looked into the longer term at all. I can tell you that out of my own Mississauga area, in 4 years of the previous Liberal government, they introduced 640 long-term care beds in 4 years across Ontario. I got in Mississauga, me and my colleagues in Mississauga, we managed to get 1,084 new longer-term care beds in 2 years or 3 years. That's out of 35,000 new long-term care beds. All those 30,000 people coming to those long-term care beds are now sitting in our hospitals, occupying beds of hospitals because they can't be dependent. They can't be in home care. Some of those cases are very severe, need a hospital-like setup. Those longer-term care will enable our system, our health system, our beds and hospital beds and all those operational and all the activities, the medical activities to function right. We need to take that so that the system can be lightened up, expanding the capacity of it, because we are taking all those long-term care patients to long-term care beds. So I think that's two aspects of stuff we understood. We learned it very hard way during the COVID, and I think that will be learned lessons.
Can there be free college education for jobs that need to be filled? The Biden administration in the United States is trying to give free college. Is it time for, in your opinion, Ontario and the federal government, Canada, to show a little more give a little more opportunity for people to be educated in more higher education as opposed to just high school and vocational stuff. More like we're talking about nurses and other such vocations that people can learn and don't have the money to pay. But, is it something that you're looking at? Is there something that your government is thinking about, working with
As I
the federal
mentioned,
governments?
we work it in that aspect actually in multiple bases. One of the bases, as announced yesterday, for example, that the provincial government is taking more control over the provincial nominee program. So now those new 9,000 nominees get sponsored by the government of Ontario to get their PR papers going and get work permits. They are going to be chosen by the government. It's not first come, first serve as it was. So now we can try to navigate with those 9,000 in the areas which we need the expertise for. If we have a shortage in this area, we can fulfill a specific gap by allowing a specific expertise to come in. And instead of it's first come, first serve, they open the door to apply at 12:00 1st of January, and it get closed 12:01 1st of January because everybody's waiting for that second thing. Now the system will be open the whole year, and you express interest for the nominee program. End of the year, there's a committee sits and evaluate all the applicants and choose what Ontario needs. And that's a whole myth of that nominee program. Why we sponsor people? Because we need them. Not like we'll sponsor them because they were fast and pressing enter.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't think there's any problem with the Conservatives and the Liberals working together. After all, you're proof that it's possible. You were a Liberal, and then you won an election. You ran for the same place as a Liberal, and now you're a Conservative. So
Yeah.
obviously, there can't be that much difference in the party. We do have, there's the left of left and the right of right, and somewhere in the middle, there's a lot of agreement that can take place. Is that why you felt comfortable changing parties?
I don't think it's the right term to say changing parties, because that was federal different profiles and that's provincial different profiles. End of the day, I have to say maybe a few words in that, because lots of people always forget that. Number one, the government is all walks of life, like all of us coming from different areas, different specializations. They enrich the experience of the caucus by different expertise, but in the same time, they are not experts in the specifics of things. We depend on the business, the people, to raise a flag, explain to us, not only explain to us what is their challenge is, but even recommend the solution. Because if somebody come and say, I am a chicken farmer and I'm having a problem with this bill, I I wouldn't know, I wouldn't see. I'm not raising chickens. I don't have a farm to know that. It's part of his duties or his profession to come to me and say, as an expert, this will cause that. So, what do you think? If we did this way, that will help us all. And in that time, I can advocate for them. I can speak about the issue because, as I mentioned, I'm not the expert. Government is not the expert of anything, expert of everything. So we need people to raise a flag, come to us, speak to us, tell us what the challenge is. I wouldn't see it from 70,000 foot upstairs. You are the expert. You are in the field. It's your part to tell me what's your challenge, and we listen. And in many cases, our government proved to be listening to people. Doug Ford, one of the, I think, best qualities in the premier is he listens and he don't shy out from saying, "Well, I did a mistake. It's my mistake. We'll fix it." And I think this is great and very rare in politicians to say, "Sorry, I didn't get it right, but we'll fix it." And
Yeah,
I think this is great.
let's not get confused, because the electorate doesn't change, the politician changes. So in essence, when you change parties, you weren't changing parties and moving to a different community. You were in the same community, making the same sales pitch that you probably made as a liberal. It just felt better doing it as a conservative on a provincial level, if I'm understanding you correctly, than it did on a federal level. So that just speaks to leadership in each party and the direction each party takes. All right, enough about that. The point is you're representing your people. You didn't change the people you're representing. Nobody here is
No.
going to try and suggest that. That's not the suggestion here at all. Let's talk a little bit about you. You talked yourself too about making mistakes. You had a couple of missteps with COVID in your time. We don't have to highlight it, but the reason I'm asking is because now we have the breaking news reopening plan, the official plan. I didn't want to spend the whole hour on COVID, but it seems like it sucks our life in completely and doesn't. So here it is. We're looking at one of the main things that we want are people to get vaccinated. The other thing we want them to do is to get vaccinated because we're trying to achieve this thing called herd immunity. When I've heard experts speak around the world and talk about herd immunity, they talk about 80%. So your government has decided at 80%, when you arrive at that place, 25% indoors is okay. You don't feel it could be bigger? I'm not a promoter of, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not in fact, I'm the opposite. Anybody who watches this show, but sometimes I have to speak from the devil's advocate's position. And that's my devil's advocate's position. Why can't we open up completely when 80% of the people are vaccinated?
Okay, let me actually. I'm very glad you asked this question because it might give me the opportunity to explain something. Actually, when the government say we will open this activity, it's not us who said that. It's the science table who said that, or the medical chief officer who said that. Why? Because I am not a medical expert. I can't take medical decisions. It's not up to me to say, yeah, it's safe to open now. They have to recommend that. They have to say that. And I would say in any point during the COVID, when we had huge pressures to open or to close or to take action, we take that, absorbed it, and said, guys, I am following the medical advice. Why? Because if I decided to open when the medical people say no, it's not safe to open now. God forbid something happened. What's he gonna say? Oh, this government opened even against the advice of the medical people. We never did that across the whole course when we had severe pressures. And actually, this opening plan comes on. We have been advocating that. I have been asking for that for almost more than 2 months. We don't want to take the pressure as we closing or opening. The positive attitude we should do is when we get to that, we'll open this. When we get to that, we'll open that. So people see the light in the end of the tunnel. People see a goal. We are working towards that goal. When we get to that goal, we'll open this, we'll open that. It's not up to me. It's not like, let's apply more pressure, let's do a petition, and they will fear and open. We can't do that. So I think that's 60, 70, 80% rates of vaccination is based on the advice of the medical people, what the levels they are comfortable with, different activities, and specific goals. It's not up to us. This is a line. If we get to that line, we'll open. If we get to that line earlier, we'll open earlier. If we got to this line late, because of whatever reason, we don't have the vaccine, we'll have to delay. We are not going to buy into any pressures. This is a threshold got approved by the medical people.
But there is a perception out there by the people who you can look at them for whatever motive they have, that they feel that until the government gets, or people, for example, teachers, until they get 100% guarantee that when they go to work, they're going to come home safely, they're not going to work. That is an unreasonable expectation by anybody's measurement, isn't it? Because zero risk is an impossibility today. In any person's life doing anything, there are no guarantees. There has to be an acceptance of a reasonable risk, and I guess that's what this chart speaks to. The government or whomever's made this list, whether it be the doctors or the experts, this is the level of risk they're willing to accept. Correct? Isn't that essentially what this all comes down to? Because we'll never get to 100% safety. That'll never happen. Because as long as there's somebody that doesn't want to wear a mask, doesn't want a vaccine, we're going to be always under their, if I can put it this way, their risk. Because that's the unfortunate thing about the virus. My risk is your risk. What you do risky affects me. And that's why I wear a mask. That's why I want to get a vaccine. That's why I promote those things. And I know you do. I know the government does. But what do we do with these people? Can we shut down forever waiting for these other people to all of a sudden say, yeah, I should wear a mask if I didn't get vaccinated, instead of sneaking around not wearing a mask and saying I have been vaccinated, or people who aren't vaccinated saying I have been vaccinated? How do we avoid them in allowing us to open up? If we wait for them, we're never going to open up again, right?
No, we are not going to wait. We are putting plans now to incentive people to get vaccinated, incentive people to move on, to have a positive attitude. If I get vaccinated, like I don't know if you've seen my video a few weeks back when I said, please take your vaccine.
Yes.
Let's open. We need you to get your vaccine so that we can open and get out. When you don't take your vaccine, we are all going to be in this dilemma. We are all into this together, as much as Premier Doug Ford said. It's not one man, it's not one group, it's not one ethnicity, it's not one city. It's all of us into this, because even if we could control everything to be one city having the issue, it's not going to be long before, like 2-3 months on the road, those people traveling from that city to other cities will get the infection going to different cities and the whole province again. So we have to continue pressuring and continue working together hand in hand. We are in this together, and we'll get over it together.
We have to leave it there. Member Sheref Sabawy of the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Frank. It's my pleasure all the time to answer any questions. Reach out to my office. If we don't have the chance to ask you a question, reach out to my office. I will do my best. I promised to be the voice of the people, and I deliver all the opinion, even if I don't agree or disagree with it. I make a commitment to deliver it to the right channels.
For MLA Sheref Sabawy, I'm Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Open Forum, seen live Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Open Forum, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thank you for watching. Until next week, I'm Candid Frank.
Thank you.